Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Mike Kerr, and this is Our Future in America. Today, I'm really excited. I have one of my dearest friends. He works at Skywatch TV, and he's also become a documentary filmmaker. You can see in the back, it's Josh Peck. And if I move my big head, you'll see his last piece, which is an amazing documentary called Silent Cry. Josh, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. It's always good talking to you, and it's a blessing for me to be back on your show.
Well, thank you. And you know, Josh, this show is basically about where you see the future of America. Where are we going? I mean, I didn't see it. I'm sure you didn't see it, but last night Joe Biden had a town hall meeting where he only invited people that supported him. And it from what I've read about it, it was a mess, a hot mess. And our whole country seems to be a hot mess right now. You came out with Silent Cry because of the child trafficking epidemic in America right now. Where do you see us going as we move forward?
I think two things are going to happen simultaneously. I think that things generally in the world, especially here in America, we can localize it to America since that's the title. But here in America, I think things politically, socially, I think that stuff is going to get worse. But while that's getting worse, I believe that there's going to be a type of revival in the church, or at least people are going to Christians are going to get stronger. Those who may have been atheists before are going to start looking at it, with fresh eyes. And I think that we're going to see that. And the reason I say that, I think we're in a type of an apostasy right now. I recently released a book called The Lost Prophecies of Qumran. And it's about the ancient Essenes, who were the only ones of the Jewish community in the time of Jesus who expected Jesus, the Messiah, to be God incarnate, to die in 32 AD for people's sins. I mean, they had a lot of foreknowledge about the Messiah and accepted a lot of that, things that the Pharisees and Sadducees didn't. Well, these amazing Jewish believers also had this calendar that they followed. And according to their calendar, the time of Jesus basically was the end of their age. An age to the Essenes is a period of 2,000 years. And it's been about 2,000 years since then. So when you do the math, and again, I do it all in the book, but and it's actually pretty easy to figure out. But we're in 2025, we'll be entering the final Jubilee, the final 50 years of our age, according to the Essenes. And we can talk about what that might mean prophetically. But what the Essenes taught is that at the end of every age, there's always an apostasy. And I think that's what we're seeing. So I think kind of knowing that this is prophetic, this is kind of supposed to happen, can help us as Christians recognize it for what it is, so we don't accidentally become part of it. Because this apostasy, everybody, bickering and backbiting and reviling each other. I mean, Paul told us not to even associate with revilers. That's just being verbally abusive. Yet how many of our Christian brothers and sisters on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, are just completely comfortable doing that to one another? So I think that is an example of how the church and Christians are inadvertently taking part in the apostasy. You could definitely see the same type of apostasy happen at the end of the previous age during the time of Jesus, from that last 50 years between that would be right around the end of Jesus' ministry, and then up until, or actually it'd be at the beginning of Jesus' ministry up until 75 AD. That final Jubilee was the end of what was to the Essenes called the age of Torah, and we're in the age of grace. It was kind of cool that they actually called it that. But that final 50 years, talk about apostasy. I mean, everything in Israel changed. There was war, infighting, wars between Pharisees and Sadducees, and there was a whole bunch of history there that I write about in the book, but it was all based around this apostasy idea, people falling away from the faith and splitting up into these heretical factions. We see that in the church today. And it's funny, even the Essenes had, there was one core group of true believers, but even the Essenes had factions break off. And when you look at the factions, the heretical factions that broke off from the believing Essenes, it's the same heretical kinds of factions that we have that break off from Christianity. And it's really an amazing study. But I think what it shows is at the end of every age, there's these apostasies, and I think we're in one now, or at least the beginning of one. And I think once we hit that 50-year mark, starting in 2025, I think things are going to get worse for the world, for USA, for the country. But think about believers during the time of Jesus. What a wonderful time, Jesus' whole ministry. So just like during that time, there was miracles, there was healings, and all this miraculous, wonderful stuff for believers, and it was kind of a terrible time for unbelievers. I think we're going to see something similar to that. Not saying we as believers are going to have it easy. Many of us are not. But if we recognize the times that we're living in and we can see what's coming ahead, just like Peter wrote in Second Peter about prophecy. You know the prophecies, you know what's coming. If we can see that and know the time that we're living in, if we know that we're living in apostasy, we can save ourselves a lot of heartache for sure, and our brothers and sisters, because we're not going to be ragging on them all the time. And of course, Jesus wants us to get along anyway. So I think there's good and bad, but just kind of a general overview. That's what I think we're going to see in the next few years.
Well, Josh, when we when we look at all this, we recognize right now that the country and the church is deeply fragmented. The whole pandemic pitted one Christian against another Christian, one saying that, you don't get the jab, the other one saying, I'm getting the jab, then someone saying, you're not a Christian if you get the jab, it's the mark of the beast, blah, blah, blah. How do we repair that as we move forward, as a country and as a church?
It's got to start individually, because that's the hardest part. You're not gonna change somebody else, because, like, would you change yourself just based on somebody telling you to? No, nobody would. You would need evidence. You would need a reason to. Now, if somebody told you that, but they came from a place that you were in now, maybe you would listen. So I think it has to start individually. That strengthens our testimony, and that can put us in a place where we can help our brothers and sisters in Christ. So if we look at the whole country as one panoramic thing, it's almost impossible. It's like this rift is never going to get fixed. That's how it looks. Yet when you look at like local communities, especially in like the Bible Belt, Midwest, this kind of area, and that maybe not so much in the cities, but when you look at local communities, there's a lot of strength there, especially when you have good, strong churches. So I think we as individuals need to look at ourselves and say, okay, where do I have pride? Because I promise you do. There's nobody listening that doesn't have it somewhere. And that's the most destructive thing. That is like the root cause of pretty much every problem you're ever going to have. So you ask yourself and God, where do I have pride in my life? And you start working on that. If we all do that, we will get along so much easier. We'll be a lot more humble, and we'll get a lot more done too, because we'll have the drive to actually focus on the important things instead of arguing about when the rapture is going to happen. We can come together and come up with ways on how best to reach the lost, or how best to even talk out our disagreements. I love a good discussion about different ideas. And, as long as it's respectful and loving, I think that kind of thing can be great. So I think if we do that individually, we can lead that charge. And when people see, we're known by our fruit, we're known by our love for one another. That's what Jesus said. That's how the outside world is going to know us, by our love for one another. If the outside world sees that, they're going to want a piece of that, because there's not true love in this world. There's lust, there's pleasure of the flesh, and all this satiation stuff for the physical body. But true love, most people have never seen or heard. They think it's what's in a Disney movie. But true love is actually kind of difficult. But what makes it amazing is that the person that truly loves you is willing to go through that difficulty with you. And that builds so much trust. And so all of that, when the outside world sees that we're treating each other like that and helping each other out in a way that the outside world doesn't, they're going to want a part of that. They're going to want to know what is this? And we'll be able to tell them, this isn't us. This is Jesus, because we're fallen human beings and we would not get along like this if it wasn't for Jesus. This is Jesus. Let me tell you about him. And then we can present the gospel. So I think just simple things like that individually can help out a lot.
I so agree with you, Josh. I mean, it's the direction we need to go in. Now, shifting gears a little bit, we live in a country right now that is plagued by drugs. Fentanyl is killing people across the country in massive numbers. But we also, as your documentary, Silent Cry, points out, are suffering this insane epidemic of child trafficking. Now, what is going on with that? How did we come to a point in our society where this is at epidemic stages, yet people like just ignore it? What is going on with that?
Right there. That's exactly why. That's exactly how we got to the mess that we're in, is because people have ignored it for decades and they continue to ignore it now. America is actually one of the worst countries in the world for child sex trafficking. It's just one of the absolute worst. And most people wouldn't even think that because it's America. And most of us don't think that we're really confronted with it, but it happens more often than people think. And it's because a lot of people, it is, and it's a hard thing to research. It's a really difficult thing to even watch a movie on, such as mine. You know, I made it as palatable as possible, but the subject matter is so dark, there's just no way to make it, you know, a completely comfortable thing. So I think a lot of people tend to push it off because of that. Maybe they tell themselves it's not their calling, or something, you know, that's kind of a Christian thing. And then when you get on the other side of the spectrum, like, you know, say people of a different political ideology, usually on the left, they won't only ignore it, but they'll come against it and say it's all conspiracy theory. Like, they'll say that this is not happening, and they'll try to convince Americans the other way. And say, you know, don't just ignore it, like fight against it. Like, this is a conspiracy. It's not happening. You know, fight against the idea that America is really bad with sex trafficking. Let's connect it with QAnon and all these weird things that have nothing to do with it. And that's what they did all throughout the Trump administration. So, you know, the Trump administration was really trying to fight this sex trafficking stuff as best as they could. But, you know, again, without any support, it's just kind of difficult to get anything done. And now we have Joe Biden in the White House, so you can kind of imagine how that's been going. So that's kind of where we're at now. But I think I think what's really going to shift the tide, what's really going to get something done, is, again, us as individuals, when we decide that we're going to finally take this seriously. And what I really love is a lot of people are doing that. When that Netflix movie Cuties came out, and it was basically child porn, a lot of people rose up and canceled their Netflix account, and they sent Netflix a message. And that's how you hurt these companies. You hurt them with your wallet, or with yeah, and hurt them with their wallet too. But that's what they care about. And so Netflix took a hit for that. Now, of course, companies, they all have their ideologies as well. So I don't know how much it really affected Netflix decision making in the future. But if that happened over and over and over again, they would get the message. And we see the left do that. You get 1,000 angry Twitter followers, you know, tweet at Nike, and all of a sudden Nike is changing their commercials and changing their whole branding and stuff. I mean, and these Twitter groups, these Twitter mobs, are not that big. I'm not saying we should mob and be insulting and be like that, but if the left can do that and get stuff done, why can't we? Not only on the right, but just even as Christians, why can't the church get stuff done? And I think it's because, again, the way that it's really going to happen is individually. I actually use this as an example a lot. A lot more people today in America are more health conscious. And that is not because the government did something about it. The government tried to do something about it in New York, and it was horrible. Everybody hated it. The government made a mess out of it when they told people they couldn't have large Cokes or something. And it didn't work. But what did work was just people as individuals just started getting more health conscious, started learning about keto, and it was an individual thing. But now we have, like, McDonald's, these fast food places that'll actually offer, like, turkey sausage sometimes, or, you know, like, more healthy options. And I think that kind of thing is how to get something done. It's not to just vote the right guy in and hope for the best, because that's government, and the government is not going to fix this problem. If anything, it's just going to make it worse if it gets involved. But we as the people have a lot more power. And so I think that's what we can do. And at least if we're doing that as individuals, we can go to sleep, you know, well at night. I can go to sleep well at night knowing that, okay, at least I'm doing something, and I'm I'm not buying things that use sexually explicit material to sell their product. I don't want to feed into this culture of over sexualization, which drives the child pornography and child sex trafficking epidemics. And when we make those choices ourselves, and by leading of the Holy Spirit, because God will help us tell us what to do, enough of us do that, and this problem, I think, could dry up quite a bit in the country, and at least we wouldn't have to be one of the worst in the world.
Well, Josh, do you think that the reason that this child trafficking has so exploded is because most of us in the general public, we just don't see it? I mean, it's clandestine. It's done all behind closed doors, very cloak and dagger. And now, as a country, we're just starting to open that door and peer into that ugly world. Is that, do you think, what has prevented us from stopping this long ago?
Yeah, I think so, because most people haven't experienced this themselves or seen it themselves in any kind of way. So they can't really associate or identify with it in any kind of way. So it's easier to put it on the back burner or to just focus on things day to day that we can do, like we can do our jobs, we can raise our kids. But the thing that we got to realize is, like, this is a part of that. This is a part of building a strong community. This is a part of raising our kids. There are very practical, easy things that parents really, it's not even that they can do, they need to do, just in the digital world that we live in. Simple things like putting apps on their phone that will allow you to see what they're looking at. I really like Covenant Eyes is a really, it's more made for like men with porn addiction and stuff. But what I like about it is what you can do is you can set in Covenant Eyes, you set your accountability partner or whatever, but whoever you set that to, that person can see the stuff that you look at. So what you do is you and your wife do that for each other, but then you have your kids do that for you. So then they're not going to see what you're looking at, just you and your wife will, but then you'll see everything your kids look at. So I like Covenant Eyes because of that. It's a lot easier to set up than how I'm making it sound right now. But that's like one simple tool. We put some other things in the movie, things to look out for, kind of obvious things as well, like watch out who you have babysit your kids, check out your daycare really well, simple stuff like that. But also things that might not seem so obvious, especially for us men, like we have to be good fathers. And I know that's like such an obvious statement. We have to be good fathers. Yeah, of course. But us as men, and I'm like this too, and I know you are, and pretty much every guy that I know is like this. The way that we take care of our families is through our work, and we provide. And that's great. We need to be doing that. That's our role. But we tend sometimes to overdo that and not spend as much family time. Well, think about when you were a kid. If your parents were like that, or how would you feel if there was even a time where your parents said that they were too busy for something? The thing is, we're not doing this just to make our kids feel good. We want them to know that they're valued, so they have a high respect for themselves. So this is especially true for girls, and that's why I'm calling out dads now, because however you treat your daughter, that's what the girl is going to crave, or that's what the girl is going to look for in other men. So if you're really respectful and you teach her that she's valued and she should have respect for herself, you're going to have a much better chance at her being able to protect herself against somebody who might be trying to groom her or something. Because what groomers will do is they will look for those girls that don't have a strong relationship with their father and who are probably craving male attention because of that. And those are typically the girls that get targeted first. And so just something as simple as having a conversation with your daughter like once a day, is that so bad? Is that so hard you can't carve out 10 minutes in the day to talk to your daughter? Something simple like that, though, will make her every day feel like she's the center of attention for that conversation. You can talk about your day, whatever she wants, but something as small as that can make a huge difference, because that's the kind of thing that groomers will fake, but they won't do for real. So show your daughter what that kind of attention looks like for real, and she won't be fooled by groomers. So there's a bunch of things like that, but it really falls on the parents educating the children, and there really is no age that's too young. It's just you tell them in a way that they can understand. So my 5-year-old, he knows that there are bad people in the world, and we have to be careful because we don't know which ones are good or bad. So stay with mom and dad all the time. Don't go running off. With our daughter, she's 10, so we can get into more detail with her and tell her a little bit more. So you just speak to them at their age level, but there's no age that's too young to start the conversation. And this should be an ongoing thing, I think, in every American household. This should be a topic that families talk about.
Well, amen. Amen to that. Now, the documentary, Silent Cry, how can people avail themselves of that? Do you have it on DVD and streaming?
Yep, absolutely. So if they want the DVD, and it comes with a whole bunch of extra stuff with it that you can't get anywhere else, extra interviews, bonus materials, audio interviews, all of that, you can go to skywatchtvstore.com and just look up Silent Cry and you'll find it there. If you just want to stream it on Amazon, you can rent it or buy it on Amazon and watch it there. And however you watch it, please leave us a review, leave the movie a review, and tell us what you think. If we deserve 5 stars, give us 5 stars. That would be great. If not, then give us what we deserve and tell us why. But honest reviews help us in future projects. So yeah, that's the best way to get the movie.
Well, now, what a great segue. Let's talk for a minute as we wind up here this morning. Future projects. What is Josh Peck working on today?
Oh, it's exciting. So right now, I just released my second film called The Great Delusion. And this is about what is going on with the whole UFO phenomenon today in a post beginning of disclosure world. So the whole process of UFO disclosure from the government has started, and it's kind of trickling through. So where does that leave us as Christians, though? How are we supposed to look at this? Is it possible they could be aliens? Are they definitely demonic, or are there different ways to look at that? So I just released that. Really excited about that. People can, if they sign up for, if it's still available, defenderconference.com. I know it premiered there, and if for anybody who can get into that conference, they can view the movie there, I think, for 30 days or something. So by the time that this is out, it might already be over. They might not have time, or whatever. But if you can't get it there, you can get the DVD at skywatchtvstore.com. Again, same website as before. You could probably just look up Josh Peck on skywatchtvstore.com, and Silent Cry and Great Delusion will come up. As for the near future, I'm in the middle of releasing a video series on Sid Roth's YouTube channel, which I thought that was really cool. They reached out to me and asked me to do a video teaching series based on the lost prophecies of Qumran, the book that I just released as well. And I thought it was kind of cool that they did that, because I'm like a dispensationalist, pre-trib, pre-mill kind of guy, And so to be able to, and that's in that video series. Like, I talk about the rapture and stuff, and they were totally cool with me talking about that. And to be able to bring that stuff, I talked about what proper prophecy is, like how to tell like a true prophet from a false prophet according to the Bible. And they were excited to have all that in there. So I thought that was really cool of them to do. I'm in the middle of that. 3 videos have just released, with another 3 coming. And so that'll be the next 3 weeks. And then after that, I think me and Tom are possibly going to do a movie based on his book, The Wormwood Prophecy. We're talking about that. And we got some other ideas in line for the next couple of years at least. So we got a lot coming. I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. Awesome. Folks, Josh Peck, he's on Facebook. He's all over the place. Just Google Josh Peck, Skywatch TV. There's some other Josh Peck out there that's a musician or something, but just Google Josh Peck, Skywatch TV. You can find everything out about him. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's always great talking to you. And thank you, your amazing audience for joining us today during this conversation. It's been great.
Well, listen, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Our Future in America. It's October 29th, Friday, October 29th. It's going to be an odd weekend. We have Halloween this weekend, on a Sunday. So remember, it's not all fun and games on Halloween. So get down on your knees, pray a bit. And as always, don't ever forget never give up, and always help people. We'll see you Monday on another edition of Our Future in America. Again, Josh, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys all Monday. Thanks so much.